on an all-new Dr. Phil. The married dentist charged with the murder of his mistress's son.
How can a man allegedly crush your baby's skull with a kick, get a piece of pizza, and put him in bed with you, brain dead at that point?
I just thought he was sleeping.
The fateful night.
When I grabbed his body was left.
Caught on tape.
He goes to the control panel. Almost all the clips have been erased. His demeanor, that being sneaky, that was someone that I'd never seen before. My mind knew logically there was only one explanation.
How do you feel knowing that you were lying inches from the man that allegedly murdered him? Today, a truly unthinkable crime. A married Oklahoma dentist charged with the brutal murder of his girlfriend's 19-month-old son. When single mom Roxanne Lewis Randall met Dr. Burt Franklin, he seemed like the perfect man. He was incredibly charming, and she says they hit it off instantly. She says Franklin told her he was going through a divorce, but Roxanne had no idea that was a lie, and her new boyfriend had even more secrets. What seemed like a promising romantic relationship soon turned into Roxanne's worst nightmare.
Bombshell tonight, a Tulsa, Oklahoma dentist leading a double life behind the backs of his wife and 4 children as it all explode when his mistress's top son is found dead.
Dr. Burt Franklin is in jail without bond for first-degree murder in the death of 19-month-old Lincoln Lewis.
During a police interview with Lincoln's mother, she told investigators that she and Franklin and the baby were all at her Northwest Oklahoma City home the night of July 16th.
She told investigators she heard a loud noise coming from downstairs while she was upstairs. She says her son was alone with Dr. Burt Franklin at the time of the thud.
The police report states his mother woke up and noticed him sleeping with his eyes open and making a loud snoring sound, but she couldn't wake him up.
And the baby's mother told investigators Franklin was the only one in the room with the baby when it happened, and that she has the surveillance video to prove that.
The surveillance video shows Burt Franklin holding Lincoln and later showed him making a violent kicking motion towards the area where he had laid the baby down.
The Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office says 35-year-old Burt Franklin will be tried for first-degree murder in this case.
Today, in an exclusive interview, Roxanne Lewis Randall speaks out for the first time since her toddler was allegedly murdered at the hands of her jealous married lover. I'm really glad to meet you. I'm tragically sorry for the circumstance. I wish we were talking about almost anything else. Tell me what you hope we can accomplish today.
I worry about mainly my kids moving past this in a healthy manner. I don't want this to affect them long-term negatively.
Not even God can change what has happened. And my goal is to walk you back to your children and to walk you back to yourself. Now, I need you to empower me with some insights, facts, and understanding that only you can give me. And how did you meet this man?
Was a patient of his.
What kind of work was he doing?
Botox.
Describe his personality when you met him.
He was very charming and kind and just really nice.
Was there a point that you said, he's flirting with me?
Just engaging in a lot of conversation. He was just funny, he was witty. We just kind of clicked.
Did you know what his marital status was?
I did, partially.
What did you understand?
That they were still married. They had, been living, separate lives. What he said.
Were you a secret?
I don't think I was fully. I don't know.
Did his wife know about you?
Yes. Yeah.
Did she object?
I don't know. She's, after all of this, she said that they've never even talked about a divorce, that that's not ever even been mentioned.
So she now tells a different story.
Yeah.
So he said they were living
They were
separate
living,
lives.
they had just not finished the divorce process.
So you didn't see yourself as the other woman here.
No.
How long before it became serious?
It became serious pretty quick. Couple months it was serious. But he met Lincoln before. He met the older kids. Lincoln was with me all the time.
He didn't meet the older children for how many weeks or months?
We started dating in June, and it was November.
So it was 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
How did they like him?
They thought he was great. He, played with them, and they thought that he was wonderful. There was a couple times that he got up with Lincoln, and I saw him, pacing, rocking Lincoln back to sleep.
Let's talk about Lincoln for just a few minutes here.
Okay.
There were some challenges health-wise with him. Tell me why.
Lincoln was born at 27 weeks, 3 months premature. He weighed 2 pounds and 1 ounce. He spent the first 2 months in the NICU. He had respiratory issues, so we had 1 hospitalization a month.
Do you consider him a miracle baby?
Absolutely, yes.
His mother referred to him as my sweet miracle babe. We first met Lincoln and his mother Roxanne last November after he was given a precious gift from a local artist who helped personalize his cranial molding helmet with her creative flair. Despite the medical challenges, the little boy seemed to be growing and thriving.
The pictures I've seen of him, it seemed like you couldn't catch him not smiling
He was the happiest.
and laughing. We've got a little video of him, but I mean, he was just a happy, happy baby, right?
He was, when he would be laughing, but it would make him cough and choke because he was sick, but he would still laugh,
He still laugh. It seems so unjust for him to overcome such tremendous odds to then be taken after winning this battle.
He was finally a normal toddler. He was finally healthy, running around and just being a normal baby.
And when Bert was in Oklahoma City, he lived with you. He stayed with you.
He stayed, and he didn't live at my house, but he would stay. He would come for the weekend.
Did he ever make any negative comments about Lincoln?
Never, not one time.
Didn't resent him being there?
Never,
Instead
no.
of being alone with you?
He did to one of his friends that told me after the fact.
What did he say to that friend?
He told her that the only common link between Mel, Lincoln's dad, and I, who he was super, super jealous of, was Lincoln, and that every time he looked at Lincoln, he saw Mel.
And he allegedly had made some very serious threats about his father, correct?
Yes, I just didn't take him seriously.
What did he say?
Mel had been calling and texting me at all hours of the night, 3 or 4 nights a week, and Bert had found out, and I was telling Bert, that I talked to him, that he said that he wouldn't be doing it anymore, and at that same moment, Mel texted me, and so Bert got super angry, and he said, I'm going to Game of Thrones your butt if you keep calling or texting. I kind of was like, you guys are idiots. We're not doing this. This is crazy.
Was there anything that struck you as odd in your relationship with him?
Yeah, I mean, there were things, I don't know if controlling is the right word. He had cloned my phone at one point. That was a major red flag. I didn't see it as a red flag because he had caught Mel and I seeing each other.
In what way?
The way that we should not have been getting together.
Okay, so you got together intimately for a night, a time, an occasion?
Yes.
And he found that out by cloning your phone?
Yes.
And how did you find out that your phone was cloned.
One of his best friends, it's a female, she accidentally told me. And this was probably like 4 months later or something. This was quite a while after the fact. I didn't know. I thought that he had just looked like had gotten on my phone when I was sleeping and had found something.
Well, in a sense, he did, right? I mean, didn't he encourage you to take Benadryl?
Well, yeah, he got on my phone, but he got on my phone to do the two-step verification and give himself access or whatever.
And while you were sleeping, he used your fingerprint, your thumbprint?
Yeah, to unlock my phone, and all while I was asleep.
At this point, I want to go to the day that Lincoln sustained these fatal injuries. Lincoln had spent some time during the day with aunt and uncle, correct?
Yes, correct.
The two of you were at home.
Yeah.
You were working on the house, right? What was Bert's mood that day?
Totally normal. We weren't fighting. We had had a date night the night before. We had gone to dinner, and it was nothing but rainbows and cartwheels the entire weekend.
And then he comes home what time during the day?
He came home 5:30 in the evening.
Did Bert's demeanor change at all when he came home?
No.
And when he came home, was he fussy? Was he crying? Was he?
He was fussy. He didn't sleep as well at other places. He was awake for maybe 30 minutes, and I laid him down for a nap.
So he takes a nap. Mm-hmm. And who got him out of the crib?
Bert did.
Was that unusual?
No, it wasn't. It was just normal, and he just stood there, with Lincoln on his hip.
Okay, and so what happened next?
He came and stood on the landing and told me, that he had gone to Panera and was talking about how he wanted pizza, so he grabbed pizza too. He was like, okay, you want me to make him a bottle? So I said, yeah. So he walked downstairs with Lincoln.
And what do you now believe happened?
Coming up.
How do you think a man that you described as charming can allegedly set your child down, pick up a piece of pizza, and brutally crush his skull with a kick? How can Mr. Rainbows and Cartwheels be that cold-blooded?
Tomorrow.
I never planned on hurting my sister. I just wanted my needs met.
You molested me, and that's not the way to go about it.
He has a disturbing history.
He's not had treatment since he's offended in the past. Why would he not offend in the future?
His sister says he's still a danger.
If she's uncomfortable with me, then tell me to stay the hell away.
Your arrogance is unbelievable. You are sitting next to a predator.
Then on Wednesday, a desperate search for a missing teen.
This girl would rather run away than stay in this environment controlled by the two of you.
All new Dr. Phil Wednesday. We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
And what do you now believe happened?
Bert carried him down the steps. Lincoln had his pacifier in his mouth, and he walked back into the living room area, handed Lincoln his bottle on the ground, stepped over him, and walked just a couple steps. And then he turned around, and you can see him on camera. He makes a violent kicking motion that you can't see the bottom part of his body, but you can see the top part. And he walks back into the living room and got a piece of pizza, and then he walks back in the living room and picks up Lincoln and makes it like a violent shoving motion to the floor and rams him head first into the floor. And he at that point, I heard a sound, which was the second sound. I thought the dog had done something. It was a large puppy. So I yelled down and he didn't respond. And in my mind, I thought that he was intentionally ignoring it so like he didn't have to clean up whatever the dog had messed up. Went to the top of the stairs and I said, you know, babe, what was that? And he yelled at me. He said it was Dax, which is the dog. So I go down there. Lincoln's pacifier was on the floor at like the base of the stairs. It was on the ground, so I picked it up, took it over the sink, and washed it off.
And you piece all of these events together after the fact based on the tapes that the prosecutors have recovered from the servers, correct? And some of it you see, some of it you infer. It's the flow of events you see from what the prosecutors recovered.
Correct. At that point, Lincoln was laying on the couch looking up at the TV. So I went to walk around to give him his pacifier, and Bert was on the other couch. He was like, no, he's asleep. And I kind of looked around, and I told him, it was like, he's not asleep yet. Like, his eyes are open. And he was like, well, go on. If he sees you, he's not going to go to sleep, and he's almost asleep, so don't let him see you. So I put his pacifier on the arm of the couch and went back upstairs. I guess that's whenever he picked up Lincoln and carried his body around. I think he probably thought that I was going to come back downstairs, and if he was falling asleep on the couch, maybe like try to like cuddle up to him or pick him up or hold him or something. So he carries him into the kitchen, gets another piece of pizza, and then eventually takes him to my room and lays him in my bed. He came upstairs, and I asked where Lincoln was, and he said that he fell asleep on the couch and put him in my bed. And I thought, awesome.
Now, that showed him carrying Lincoln, and you believe at that point that Lincoln had already been brutally and violently kicked in the head and was, for all intents and purposes, brain dead at that point.
Yeah, it was 3 minutes from the time that he carried him downstairs, sitting up, normal toddler, to that moment where he carries him into the kitchen, unconscious. Lincoln was a normal toddler. There was no getting him to sleep in 3 minutes flat. His legs are curved in, and they are dangling. You can tell that it looks at one point, both of his legs stiffen straight out, and they collapse. They think he was probably having a seizure.
So he then puts Lincoln to bed in your bed.
Yeah.
And you continue working on a project. You then check on Lincoln.
Yeah, I had walked through the room at one point. I acknowledged that he was laying in a certain position. Later on, I'd gone in to feel his forehead to see if he felt warm. I just thought he was sleepy.
Was it typical for him to sleep in your bed some?
Yeah. We co-slept quite a bit. In my bedroom, I was working upstairs, working on this cabinet upstairs. And my bedroom is the only bedroom downstairs. So it just kind of made sense, In
retrospect, do you think he may have put him down there so you would be less likely to engage him, interact with him, check on him?
I think he was trying to put as much distance between Lincoln and I as possible.
Yeah.
I think that's why he was holding him, why he was carrying him around. I think he was probably scared to death that I was going to go down there and pick him up.
You, at some point, were going to give him a bottle, right?
Yes, correct. At midnight, I went ahead and made his bottle. He normally did like 2 a.m. feedings, and so I figured if I tried to feed him beforehand, he might not wake up at 2, So I made the bottle and tried to give it to him, and he was just like he just didn't want to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
He put off aside, took my medicine, and cuddled up to him and went to sleep. And Bert came in and asked if I wanted him to put Lincoln in his own bed. I told him no, that I felt like he might be getting sick.
How do you feel in retrospect knowing that you were lying inches from the man that allegedly murdered him?
Coming up.
Take me through the moment that you realized this precious little boy is not asleep. Something is seriously wrong.
this May. There are 1,000 reasons to watch
You shove a fish sandwich in your mother's mouth?
I threw a pizza at her, too.
America's #1 daytime talk show.
She's stealing, stripping, breaking into cars.
She told me she wouldn't do that.
Where did you think she was getting the money?
The stories are true.
When I was 11, my dad had custody of me. He manipulated me into sex and the wifely duties.
Did you fight for your children?
I did.
No, you didn't. You said, I'll see.
done.
No, you're not done. Your daughter is here. Don't you throw your hands up and walk out on her again. Did you pick her up in carpool drunk?
I did not.
You mowed down 3 neighbors' mailboxes. It's time for you to grow up, lady. Look me in the eye and say, I am sick to death of this crap, or you get off of my stage.
We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview.
How do you feel in retrospect, knowing that you were lying inches from the man that allegedly murdered your son?
Naive. I mean, like, he had no problem letting me crawl into bed with him.
Here is you cuddling up with your son next to the man that has allegedly murdered him in your bed. What do you say to yourself about that?
There's something wrong with him. Like, he's a monster. There's something wrong with him. He's wired wrong or something.
Now, let's talk about the allegations here, what took place. How do you think a man that you describe in some parts as charming, rainbows and cartwheels, that can, again allegedly, casually set your child down, pick up a piece of pizza, walk behind him, and brutally crush his skull with a kick and put him in bed with you, the woman that gave birth to this child, and fought with him for 19 months to struggle for life? How in the name of God can Mr. Rainbows and Cartwheels be that cold-blooded? How do you reconcile that?
I can't. I'm gonna probably drive myself crazy trying to figure it out. I can't figure it out.
Take me through the moment that you realized this precious little boy's not asleep. Something is seriously wrong.
I woke up at 2 to a sound that I thought Lincoln was coughing. I woke up and I just remember instantly thinking, like, oh, I knew it. He's sick, you know? So I got up immediately and I went straight to the kitchen and got him some medicine and got his bottle. And when he got back to the bedroom, Bert asked me if Lincoln always slept with his eyes open. And he did sometimes. It was really weird, but so I said yes. But as I walked in, I noticed that what I thought was a cough was a gurgling. So I put the stuff down and I grabbed him. When I grabbed him, his body was limp. So I yelled at him to call 911, and he stood up on the other side of the bed and just stared at me. At that moment, I thought that it was, some people freeze up in emergency situations, like a panic. So I yelled, I said, call for an ambulance. But then it dawned on me that it would just take too long for them to find my house. My address doesn't show up. It's a new neighborhood. And so I told him that we had to drive him. I hopped in the front seat with Lincoln and I kept him in my lap, and I've never done CPR or anything. I was trying to breathe into his mouth or something. I don't even know what I was doing.
What was Bert's demeanor like driving the car? Was he urgent? Was he hurrying? Was he?
Yeah. But looking back now, that look when he stood up from the other side of the bed, that was oh my God, this is not supposed to be happening. Like, this is not the plan. Like, you're not supposed to be awake right now. I don't think that he thought I was gonna wake up until like the next morning, and then I think he probably thought that Lincoln was gonna be like long gone by then. And it might be easier to place the blame on somebody else.
When you got to the hospital, what happened?
I ran Lincoln in, and they were asking me what was wrong, and at that point I thought that with him staying at aunt and uncle's, they are middle-aged, never had kids, the absolute best caretaker babysitters, but their house not baby-proofed, you know? So I thought maybe he had gotten into like a Tide packet, or a medicine had dropped, and then he had been swimming. I just read this thing about dry drowning, and so I just was naming all these things I thought that it could have been. I had no idea.
Where did they take him, and what test did they do?
They did a CAT scan, and they came back and said that he had a head injury. And I thought they were wrong. They were talking about transferring him to Tulsa, and I was relieved because like there's real doctors there that will know.
Airlift?
Yes. It wasn't until I got to Tulsa that I knew the extent of his injuries.
It never crossed your mind when you walked through the door of that hospital in Tulsa that you were going to walk out without your baby because he was going to die?
Coming up.
Was this a plan? Do you think he planned days ahead of time to erase Lincoln from your life so he could have you to himself? Or do you think this was an impulse? Closed captioning provided by...
Dear Fresh Pet, Zuka had digestive problems and wouldn't eat. Then I fed him Fresh Pet.
Secondhand smoke caused me to have asthma attacks, infections, and lung damage, and I never smoked.
If you or someone you know wants free help to quit smoking, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Caught on tape. Dr. Phil's exclusive interview continues.
It never crossed your mind when you walked through the door of that hospital in Tulsa that you were going to walk out without your baby because he was going to die?
No.
You went up there to get your baby?
Yeah.
There's a point at which they showed you, told you, convinced you that his skull was fractured from his eyebrow to his spinal cord. And at that point you knew they're not wrong.
Yeah.
Did they describe other injuries?
That was his only injury. They said there was two points, one smaller one that splintered or something, I'm not sure, and then the big one. He told me that it was the type of injury that he saw a baby is not strapped into a car seat and they're in a head-on collision going 60 miles an hour and they're ejected. That it's that type of injury.
Take me through the moment that you realized what had to have happened.
My mind knew logically there was only one explanation. When we were on our way to Tulsa, I asked him, I said, are you sure Lincoln didn't fall or something whenever you guys were outside or whenever you guys were downstairs? And his exact answer was no. And I told you that noise was me throwing a ball at the wall for Dax. And that stuck in my mind.
Well, he answered a question that wasn't asked.
Yeah, and so that struck me as odd.
There was a point when you got there in the hospital that you realized it all came into focus for you. There were two of us there, and it damn sure wasn't me.
Well, I wanted to obviously physically assault him. I just was fuming, but I needed to get him away from Lincoln because he was still there. So I went back to the room and I told him that I felt like I needed a minute alone with my son. I whispered to the nurse if she could change the visiting rules to just me. She asked if there was a specific person that I didn't want there, and I told her yes. him, but I don't want him to know, because at that point, I didn't know what was going on or what was going to happen.
Have you spoken to him, had any communication with him since any of that took place?
About 4 hours after he left the hospital, when Lincoln was still on life support, he started calling and texting, and I didn't respond. How's he doing? Just acting totally normal. Then it was, like, why aren't you talking to me? What's going on? Tuesday night, I responded. I just said, how could you do, why? I need some kind of clarification here. I don't remember exactly word for word, but he said, I would never do anything. That I would never hurt, you or the kids. He asked if he could call me. I agreed. I maybe thought maybe he'll say something over the phone. I don't know. He called and just still denying it.
So this all happened right up to the point he was arrested. After he was arrested, no contact?
No.
When was Bert arrested?
Lincoln was taken off life support on Monday, and he passed away immediately. And by Wednesday morning, he was arrested on first-degree murder, no bond.
Now, do you think, and again, this is all allegations, do you think that he thought you were going to sleep the night through and he was going to have some opportunity to create an alternative scenario?
I think that he thought maybe if this happened, I would sleep hard all night long. We wouldn't wake up till morning. At that point, Lincoln would probably have already been gone for a few hours, and so it would probably be harder to pinpoint when it happened. And with him being a doctor and us just being normal people, maybe it wouldn't get investigated or something as seriously.
He could have maybe put him at the bottom of the stairs and said he got up and fell down the stairs. Yeah. So who knows? I mean, I don't know.
But I think he was going to try to pin it on Aunt and Uncle.
Was this a plan? Do you think he planned days ahead of time to erase Lincoln from your life so he could have you to himself? Or do you think this was an impulse?
Coming up, what Roxanne found on her surveillance cameras.
You see me run out with Lincoln. He looks behind him to make sure I'm out of line of sight, and then he goes to the control panel. Almost all the clips have been erased, but this was one of the only ones that was left on there. Just his demeanor, that being sneaky, that was someone that I'd never seen before.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
I never planned on hurting my sister. I just wanted my needs met.
You molested me, and that's not the way to go about it.
You are sitting next to a predator.
That's tomorrow. We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Do you think he planned days ahead of time to erase Lincoln from your life so he could have you to himself? Or do you think this was an impulse?
I think it was planned. I definitely think it was a plan. He wanted to have a baby. A month before he had asked, he was like, he just brought it up, and I just told him that's maybe years down the road whenever, we're married. But I think that ship has sailed, He wasn't super pleased with that answer, but he didn't ever bring it up again.
So a month before this incident with Lincoln, I had my security system installed, and it came with surveillance cameras. When the service tech hooked it up, he just put it here, and so I just left it.
What's the main thing that makes you think he was planning this all along?
At one point, I was looking at my daughter's text messages. He told her that he thought the system was down or something. He wanted her to adjust and reset the camera or something. So he was having her move it. And then you can see him on camera a couple times adjusting it, messing with it.
We have some evidence about that on the cameras. Explain what is happening here, if you can.
This was one of the only clips that was left on. You see me run out with Lincoln. You see him act like he's following behind me. He looks back, he's acting like he's going in my room, but he doubles back to make sure that he looks behind him to make sure I'm out of line of sight, and then he goes to the control panel and does something on the control panel, and the clip ends. So after he was arrested and I finally went home, almost all the clips had been erased, but this was one of the only ones that was left on there. And I knew in that minute, that was someone that I had never, that being sneaky.
Speaks volumes when you look at it.
Yeah, just his demeanor, that was someone that I'd never seen before. That was.
Right. As distasteful as it is to say or think about now, were you in love with him?
Yes.
Were you prepared to marry him?
Yes.
How does it feel to think and say that now?
It's hard to even utter those words because the feelings I have towards him now are nothing.
And again, we're talking allegations, but your speculation is, why did he do this?
Lincoln required a lot of my attention. He required more attention than even the other kids, you know. He didn't go to his dad's every other weekend. He was with me day in and day out all the time. And so it was kind of like a package deal, you know. But I think that he cared about him until he got in his way, until he was an obstacle. And so in his mind, I think that just remove it and carry on.
Would you like to know what I think?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
I'm saying what I'm saying, assuming that he's guilty, but he hasn't been convicted. All human behavior is on a continuum. So you go from here, which is absolutely evil, demented, brutal, grotesque, horrible, to Mother Teresa, people that spend their whole life giving and doing and loving for others. And these people have trouble understanding these people because you can't see in others what you don't have something in yourself to see. And you've got to get this in your head. You can't see him coming. You said, I think he cared about him until he was in the way. No, he didn't. Let me tell you, this man cared about himself. He told you, I look at him and I see his father. He is absolutely an obstacle here and a threat. He wants you to himself, and he looks at Lincoln, he's at his expense. He's taking your time. His ability to have you all to his own is rare, and he needs that attention. He's courting you, he's seducing you, he's grooming you, much like a pedophile grooms a victim. And this predator got inside your home. And when a single mother with a child has a non-biological male inside the home, the risk to the child goes up 33 times normal. So let me tell you something. The kind of guy that could do what he's doing while he's casually eating pizza and be so non-empathetic as to place that child beside his mother in bed and lay down with them, that's a level of evil that I haven't seen.
Coming up.
You have to start grieving this child. You haven't grieved this child for 1 minute, have you?
We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview.
Roxanne, you got into a terrible situation, and you got caught in a perfect storm, and your baby paid the price. So what do you do about it? You do a couple of things. Number one, as difficult as it is, you celebrate the time that you had Lincoln. And if every time you think of Lincoln, you cry, then his legacy is pain. You owe him better than that. You have to put his pictures up. You have to, when it's Christmas time, you have to hang a Lincoln stocking. The children, you have to talk about him. Don't you dare forget him.
Yay!
You have to start grieving this child. You haven't grieved this child for 1 minute. Have you?
I still cannot even accept it be gone.
Even if, this is going to sound so strange for me to say, but even if you have to wake up an hour early every day and devote that hour to grieving this child, even if you have to come home from work, take the phone off the hook, close up the windows, go sit in your bedroom and grieve this child, because if you don't, you will never get to the point that you can do point one, which is to celebrate his life. And you haven't done that. You feel like you failed to protect him. You know justice will prevail. It's not your job. That's going to get handled. And What you got to do is do everything you can to make sure that whatever measure of justice can be meted out to him is done. If you're the judge and jury, what do you want to happen? Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
If you're the judge and jury, what do you want to happen?
Well, I definitely feel like the death penalty should be on the table, but there's a loophole in Oklahoma. He's not death penalty eligible. Do I want him to die tomorrow? No, because that would be too easy.
You want this man to pay the ultimate price.
Tulsa dentist Burt Franklin's practice is in financial ruin tonight, and all the equipment in his South Tulsa office is being liquidated.
They tell me they have never seen a story as tragic as this, which is what led them to donate a portion of their sales from this auction to the victim's family.
Ray, thank you for coming. I understand you represent her, and you're only going to file a civil suit, I assume?
That's correct.
What are your options here, Ray?
Well, we're facing a few. The bankruptcy thing's already happened, which was expected. Hopefully we'll be able to get around that. I think we will. Of course, you know, he's already playing the poor card on everything.
You've happened on to a very accomplished and skilled attorney here. I was telling her she needs to grieve this child, and it doesn't mean she doesn't need to work on the lawsuit, but I was telling her that you will let her know what you need and when you need it.
That's exactly what I told him in the very beginning. I said, you try to move on as best you can. Let me deal with this side of it.
I'm going to arrange some very specialized professional help for you to help you with the two children in terms of how to describe some things to them and to help and support you through this grief process. And that's our gift to you. That's not no expense to you. We're here for the long haul. We want this to work for you. We reached out to Burt Franklin's attorney for a comment, and we did not receive a response by our broadcast deadline. Burt Franklin has been charged with murder and is being held without bail. His trial is set to start this September. If you want to help Roxanne and her family through this difficult time, go to whengeorgiasmiled.org and click on the donate button. We want to honor the memory of little Lincoln. He may have lived a short life, but he will live forever in the hearts of his loved ones. We hope he gets the justice he deserves. Thanks for watching.